She walked out of the building at 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon in November with a cardboard box, 2 weeks of severance, and no plan. The HR woman had been very kind about it. Slid the paperwork across the desk, explained the timeline, said things like, "We really do appreciate everything you've contributed." Rachel nodded and signed and picked up the box and walked out through the lobby and through the glass doors and into the parking lot. She found her car, got in, put the box on the passenger seat, hands on the wheel. She didn't start the car. She just sat there with her hands on the wheel doing the math in her head, the same math she'd been doing for months. Mortgage, daycare, groceries, 3 kids, 1 income. Except now it wasn't even 1 income. Now it was nothing. 11 minutes. That's how long she sat there. She knew because she watched the clock on the dashboard. She wasn't counting down to anything. She just needed to watch something move. Then she started the car and drove home. That was November. By March, she'd lost the house. And one night in April, 2 a.m, kitchen table, 3 kids asleep down the hall, she opened a banking app on her phone and looked at a number. $13.42. She read it twice, refreshed it. Same number. There was a yellow legal pad on the table in front of her. She'd pulled it out of the junk drawer that night, the kind of drawer that collects dead batteries and takeout menus from places that don't exist anymore. She didn't have a plan for it. She just needed something in front of her that wasn't the phone. She picked up a pen, and then she just sat there. That's the moment I keep coming back to. Not the parking lot, not the foreclosure, that kitchen table. 2 a.m, $13.42, and a blank legal pad she hadn't figured out what to write yet. Here's what she wrote. Rachel Calloway grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Normal family. Her mom worked at a dental office. Her dad drove trucks. She had a sister. They had a house with a sprinkler in the yard. Nothing dramatic, just a regular childhood in a regular Midwestern neighborhood where the most interesting thing that happened was when the neighbor's dog got loose and ate someone's garden. She went to Ohio State, studied communications. She graduated, she says, somewhere in the middle, which she says with a tone that makes it clear she's made peace with it. She got a job at a marketing firm after school. Nothing flashy. Copy editing, social media posts, email newsletters. The kind of job where you're decent at it, but you're not losing sleep over it. She met Greg at a work happy hour when she was 26. He was funny. That was the thing. He had this easy way of telling stories, relaxed, a little self-deprecating, the kind of guy who makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. She spilled her drink on his shirt at some point that night, and he just looked down at it and said, "Honestly, I hate this shirt." She thought, okay, this one's good. They got married when she was 28. Noah came a year after, Emma 2 years after that. Then Cora, who Rachel has described with great affection as a beautiful surprise that required a serious conversation about biology. Greg traveled a lot for work. Industrial equipment sales, which sounds exactly as exciting as it is. He was gone 3 weeks out of 4 sometimes. Rachel kept the house, kept the kids, kept working. She was good at it. She made it look easy. I think that might have been part of the problem, honestly. She made it look easy for so long that nobody, including maybe her, stopped to ask how she was actually doing. She wasn't unhappy. I want to be clear about that. She wasn't sitting around wanting something different. She had a life, a full one. It just wasn't one she'd have recognized from the outside as anything that was about to change. Greg left on a Tuesday, a normal Tuesday. Noah had a dentist appointment that morning. Emma couldn't find her shoe. Cora refused to eat breakfast except for one piece of toast that she then crumbled and spread across the high chair like she was trying to make a point about something. Greg came home around noon. He never came home at noon. Rachel was at the sink when she heard the door. She called his name. He said, "Hey." Just hey. That flat hey that's not really a greeting. She turned around. He was standing in the kitchen with his coat still on, holding his keys, looking at something past her shoulder. She knew. Before he said a word, he said he wasn't happy. Said he hadn't been for a while. Said he'd been thinking about it for a long time, and he thought it was better to say it now. She asked if there was someone else. He didn't answer right away. "Greg, it's not like that." Which told her everything. She didn't cry. I honestly don't know how. She just held the edge of the counter and said, very quietly, "The kids are going to be home in 3 hours." That was the whole conversation. He was gone before Noah got back from school. She told Noah Daddy had a work trip. She'd figure out the rest later. That was always her system. Get through the moment, figure out the rest later. That system was about to stop working. The split was civil, or civil-ish. They used a mediator, split things down the middle. Greg took his car, Rachel kept the house. She thought that was the right call. The kids were settled in their school, the neighborhood was good. She wasn't going to uproot them over this. What she didn't think through, and look, how do you think this through when you're sitting across from a mediator trying not to cry, was what happens when you're suddenly paying a $1,600 mortgage on one income, plus $900 a month for Cora's daycare, plus groceries, utilities. Noah needed new glasses. Emma was going through shoes like she was actively trying to destroy them. Rachel's car needed brakes. She was making $41,000 a year. She did the math. She did it again and again. Like maybe the numbers were going to change if she ran them enough times. They didn't. She started missing sleep over it. She started doing that thing where you lie in bed at 2 a.m, running numbers in your head. 1,600, 900, 41,000 divided by 12. Over and over. And then, in October, Emma got strep. Then Noah got it. Then Cora, and if you've never dealt with a sick 2-year-old, I don't know how to describe it except to say it is the most helpless you will ever feel in your life. They don't know why they feel bad. They just know they do. And the only solution they have is to scream about it. Rachel called in 3 days in a row. She had the sick days. She used them. She thought that's what they were for. Her manager called her in on a Thursday in November. His name was Mr. Hewitt. He had a poster on his wall that said, "Excellence is not optional." He sat her down and said her reliability had become a concern. That was the word he used. Reliability. She said she'd taken approved sick days. He said it wasn't about the days specifically. It was about the pattern. about clients not being able to count on her availability. She said, "I'm available every day my children aren't sick and there's no one else who can be with them." He nodded in that way people nod when they've already made up their mind and they're just waiting for the conversation to end. She was let go the following week. 2 weeks severance. Very professional. She walked out to the parking lot, got in her car, put her hands on the steering wheel. She sat there for 11 minutes. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. She was just running the math. One more time, hoping somehow it added up differently. It didn't. Greg's mom called in December. Her name was Diane. She was the kind of person who's always polite, but in a way that makes you feel like you're being managed. Rachel had dealt with her for 6 years. She knew how to read her. She called 2 weeks before Christmas, said she was checking in, said she'd heard things weren't going well, said she wanted to make sure the kids were okay. Then she said, and I'm quoting this as accurately as I can, "Greg is doing really well, by the way. He's seeing someone. She seems very grounded." Rachel didn't say anything. "I just think you should really think about what's best for the kids, Rachel, given everything." Rachel thanked her and hung up. She stood in the kitchen after that. The fridge was humming. Emma had left a drawing on the table. A house, 4 stick figures, and a dog they didn't have, but Emma had been asking for since she could talk. Rachel looked at it for a second. Then she put it on the refrigerator and went to make dinner. She didn't tell anyone about that call. Her friend Marta called too around the same time. Marta meant well, she genuinely did. But Marta had this thing where she showed support by telling you about other people who'd been in similar situations and how long it had taken them to recover. You remember Jennifer from the park group? Something similar happened to her, and it took almost 4 years, Rachel. 4 years. Rachel said, "Wow. I just want you to know I'm here. If you need food, if the kids need clothes, nobody would judge you." Rachel said thank you. She hung up. She stood in the kitchen again. Same kitchen, same fridge humming. She was 34. She had no job. She had a mortgage she couldn't cover, and a friend who wanted her to know nobody would judge her. She went to bed thinking, okay, figure it out. You always figure it out. She did not figure it out quickly. December was hard. She applied for every marketing job she could find. Got a few interviews, made it to second rounds for 2 of them. One came back with an offer, $43,000, full benefits, in person Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. 8 to 6. She did the math. Daycare for Cora was $900 a month. After school for Noah and Emma was another $500. That's $1,400 a month before gas and lunch. She turned it down. She picked up freelance work instead. Wrote copy for a dentist's website, which felt like the universe had a specific sense of humor. Edited a gym newsletter. Did social media part-time for a flower shop. It kept things going, barely. Then, in January, the mortgage company sent a notice. Just a notice, polite, but it had a date on it. She read it at the kitchen counter. Then she put it face down. Then she put the yellow legal pad on top of it. Not because she was going to use the legal pad. She wasn't using it for anything. She just needed it there. Like something to cover up the date. Her sister called from Arizona and offered to help. Rachel said she was fine. Her sister said she didn't sound fine. Rachel said she'd manage. She was not managing. But she was still showing up every morning. Lunch is packed, kids dropped off, freelance work done, kids picked up, dinner made, baths, stories, bedtime. Then back to the table, every night, running numbers she already knew by heart. And I think that's the part that gets me, honestly. Not the dramatic stuff, just the dailiness of it. The way she kept doing the ordinary things, even when the ordinary things felt impossible. The idea showed up on a Sunday in February. Rachel's mom had driven up for the weekend. A woman named Carol, who arrived with 2 bags of groceries and immediately started reorganizing the pantry. That's just how Carol is. She expresses love through reorganizing things. Rachel had stopped fighting it years ago. While Carol was in the kitchen, Rachel was in the living room with Cora. Cora had found a bin of Emma's craft supplies and was very methodically dumping all of it out, the way 2-year-olds treat any container they find. There was a bag of gemstones in the bin, the cheap kind you find at craft stores, polished, pretty, $1.50 a bag. Emma had used them for some school project and never put them back. Cora picked one up. Rose quartz, pink, kind of glowing in the afternoon light coming through the window. She held it up. Cora made this little sound, the sound she made when something pleased her, like a small, satisfied hum. Rachel was watching her, and something just clicked. I can't explain it better than that. It wasn't dramatic. It was more like when you're looking for something and then you realize you've been holding it the whole time. She didn't do anything about it that day. She helped Cora put the stones back. She had dinner with Carol. She put the kids to bed. She sat with her mom at the kitchen table and drank tea. Carol said, "How are you really, sweetheart?" And Rachel said, "I'm okay." Which was not completely true and not completely false. Carol drove back to Columbus the next morning. Rachel got out the yellow legal pad. She opened it for the first time. She wrote 2 words, stone jewelry. Then she crossed them out, wrote, handmade stone jewelry. Crossed that out too. Sat there for a minute. Then wrote in the corner, small, like she wasn't ready to commit, something with grace. She turned the page over and started writing down what she knew. She could make things. She'd always been good with her hands. She had taste, which Greg used to call expensive, and she always took as a compliment. She had a table, a laptop, a phone with a decent camera. She wrote, "What do I need to start?" Then under it, "Less than you think." She was at that table until 2 in the morning. Etsy guides, jewelry tutorials, wholesale stone suppliers, pricing formulas, how to photograph small objects with natural light. She filled 5 pages front and back. She didn't sleep. But for the first time in months, she wasn't running the math on what she'd lost. She was running it on something else. She ordered $63 worth of supplies. Wire, clasps, some little metal pieces called findings, the stuff that holds jewelry together, and stones, rose quartz, labradorite, a small bag of raw tourmaline that looked like something out of a geology museum photo. When the box came, she unpacked it on the kitchen table after the kids were asleep. She had never made jewelry before, not once. She'd watched probably 40 tutorials by that point, but there's a gap between watching and doing, and her first attempt closed that gap pretty brutally. She wrapped the wire, looked at what she'd made, and just laughed. Like actually laughed, alone at midnight in her kitchen. It was that bad. She took a photo of it, labeled it, Attempt 1, and started over. By the end of the first week, she had 6 pieces she wasn't embarrassed by. By the end of March, she had 43, photographed on a white pillowcase by the window, listed on Etsy. Prices between $38 and $65. She sold 2. One to her mom's neighbor, who she's pretty sure Carol pressured into it. One to a stranger in Portland, Oregon, which felt like a genuine miracle. $62 total. She wrote it in the legal pad. Column 1, sold. Column 2, amount. First entry, 2 pieces, $62. Small, but real. She found a farmer's market nearby. Saturdays in the parking lot of a church, $12 for a table. She got on the wait list, and in April, she got her first spot. She set up before anyone was awake that Saturday morning. Carol had driven up to watch the kids. Rachel was out the door at 6:45 with 38 pieces wrapped in tissue paper and a folding table borrowed from the neighbor across the street. She built a little display out of a wooden crate and some driftwood she'd found by the creek near the house. She printed a card. Stone and Grace. She'd come up with the name a few weeks before. Sat at the table at 2 in the morning, written it in the legal pad, looked at it for a while. It felt right. She wasn't totally sure what grace meant in this context. It was more of a feeling than a definition. Something that holds even when it should break. She sold 8 pieces that first Saturday. $274. She sat in her car in the church parking lot at 2:15 and held the cash in her hands and just sat there. Then she called Carol. How'd it go? Good, Mom. How good? Really good. She could hear her mother smiling. The market became the anchor, every Saturday, April through June. She kept making pieces, kept reinvesting everything back into supplies. She got better fast. Wire wraps cleaner, compositions more deliberate, pieces that actually looked like something you'd see in a boutique. She started doing layered pendants, asymmetrical earrings, stacked stones. The Etsy shop picked up too. 15 sales in May, 28 in June. Reviews started coming in and she read every one. A woman in Seattle wrote, I wasn't expecting to cry when I opened this, but the note inside said, made with care, worn with grace. And I did. I actually cried. 5 stars. Rachel wrote that note by hand, on every single order. Still does. And she was filling the legal pad. Costs, ideas, supplier notes, little observations. Don't use cheap brass fittings, they turn. Tourmaline moves better in summer. Better lighting on the left side of the table. She was figuring it out. Slowly, but actually figuring it out. And then the second mortgage notice came. June, a second notice. July, a third one with different language. She looked up every word she didn't know. Foreclosure timeline. She understood all of it by the end. She was 4 months behind. She called the mortgage company. 40 minutes on hold. Spoke to someone who was kind and helpless. Spoke to a supervisor who offered a forbearance plan. Pause the payments, add them to the end of the loan, buy some time. She said yes. That helped. For a moment. Then the medical bill came. Cora had needed ear tubes. Routine surgery, same day, totally normal. Except Rachel's COBRA coverage had lapsed, and she hadn't caught it, and the facility was out of network. The bill was $4,200. That's just how it works sometimes. You're holding things together, and something cuts the rope higher up, and everything slides at once. She put the bill on the table next to the legal pad, looked at both of them. She was making maybe $2,000 a month between the market and Etsy, growing but not fast enough. The forbearance was temporary. The medical bill had a deadline. One of her freelance clients had gone quiet. Another had found someone cheaper. She applied for a small business loan. Rejected. Insufficient credit history. No collateral. Personal loan. Rejected. Debt to income. She had one credit card with a $3,000 limit. She maxed it. Bought inventory. Better stones, better materials, real packaging instead of tissue paper and tape. She built up stock all through September and October for the holiday season. She knew it was a gamble. She wrote that down. She actually wrote it. This is a gamble. Don't pretend it isn't. Then she wrote, it's the only move left. November was the best month she'd ever had. $4,600, Etsy, and 2 holiday craft fairs. She sold out of almost everything. Orders were backed up 2 weeks. She was at the table every night until 1, 2 in the morning. Kids asleep, apartment quiet, stones and wire spread out under the kitchen light. She paid down the medical bill, made a partial mortgage payment, paid the minimum on the card. She thought, okay, there's the runway. And then December slowed down. January was quiet. February, quieter. She put groceries on the credit card once and told herself it was temporary. In March, the bank called. The forbearance period was over. The back payments were due. She explained about the business. The woman on the phone was sympathetic. The bank was not. Formal foreclosure proceedings. April. 60 days. She sat at the kitchen table that night and looked at the bank app. $13.42. This is where the story started. This is the night I told you about. The legal pad on the table, the cold coffee, the dark apartment, the kids asleep. She'd been at low points before, different numbers, different specifics. But this particular kind of night, where everything you've been building feels like it's made of nothing, she knew this feeling. She opened the legal pad. She wrote at the top of a fresh page, "What's actually true right now?" She wrote, 43 pieces in inventory. She wrote, farmer's market on Saturday. She wrote, 212 email subscribers. She wrote, $60 left on the card. She wrote, 3 kids asleep upstairs, healthy. She looked at the list. Then she added one more line at the bottom. That's enough to work with. She didn't sleep that night, but she was already making calls. The calls she made that night were not exciting. She emailed a boutique owner named Denise, a small shop in her neighborhood, candles and local art and curated stuff. Rachel had been in there a few times. She wrote the email at 3 in the morning, rewrote it twice, and sent it at 6:45 when she figured a small business owner might start checking their phone. She reached out to a gift shop downtown, 2 other boutiques. And she texted a woman named Teresa, who she'd met at the farmer's market. Teresa sold ceramics. They'd talked a few times. Teresa had mentioned once having a consignment deal with a store in the next town. The text said, "Hey, I know this is random. I'm in a tough spot and trying to grow fast. Do you still have that contact at the store on Elm? Any chance you'd intro me?" Teresa wrote back in 20 minutes. "Yeah, she's lovely. Give me a day." And I want to say something about that, because this is the part of these stories that usually gets left out. Nobody does this alone. Not really. There is always a Teresa. always someone who writes back in 20 minutes when you're drowning and says, "Give me a day." Rachel has never forgotten that. She's said it in interviews. She says it to people who ask how she did it. She says, "Find your Teresa." Denise wrote back by noon and asked to see the pieces. Rachel drove over that afternoon with everything she had. Cora was on her hip because the babysitter had canceled. She laid pieces out on the glass display counter while Cora pressed her face against it and breathed fog on the glass. Denise picked up a labradorite pendant, turned it over, held it up. "These are really good." "Thank you." "What are you doing at the farmer's market?" Rachel told her. Denise set the pendant down. "I can do consignment at 40%. Can you keep me stocked? Because if something moves, I don't want gaps." Rachel said yes before she'd finished working out whether yes was actually doable. It was. Barely. But it was. The house foreclosed in May. She'd known it was coming. She'd had 60 days to sit with it, which is a strange kind of cruelty. Enough time to stop fighting it, not enough time to stop feeling it. She found an apartment 12 minutes away, same school district. She would not move the kids out of their school. That was the one thing. Everything else was negotiable. That wasn't. The apartment was $400 cheaper than the mortgage. It had a small kitchen with a window that faced east. Morning light. She told the kids on a Sunday night, sat them all at the kitchen table, the one with the ring stain on the corner, and said they were moving somewhere new, smaller, but theirs. She said they could each pick a color for their space in the shared room. Noah said, "What about my room here?" She said, "You'll have your own space, just in the same room as your sisters for a while." He was quiet. Then he said, "Okay." 8 years old, just okay. Emma wanted purple. Cora also wanted purple. This was a problem that took 3 days to resolve. Rachel packed the house herself, mostly at night, box by box. The legal pad stayed on the kitchen counter until the last day. Last thing she packed. They moved on a Saturday. Carol came from Columbus to help. Teresa brought a casserole. Marta sent a text that said, "Thinking of you." Rachel replied with a heart and went back to carrying boxes. That first night in the apartment, kids finally asleep, Rachel sat at the kitchen table, her table, now in a smaller room with the east-facing window, and looked around. She opened the legal pad. New address, new start. Then she got back to work. The 6 months after the move were the hardest and most productive of her life at the same time. Up at 5 every morning, make pieces before the kids wake up, school drop-off, come home, fill orders, photograph new pieces, check the Etsy shop, pick up kids, make dinner, homework, baths, stories. Then back to the table. Every night. Denise's boutique was moving product. The shop Teresa had connected her with placed a standing order, 12 pieces a month. Rachel got into an October craft fair that drew 800 people a day for 3 days. She ran out of inventory by noon on day 2. The legal pad kept filling up. Supplier contacts, margin calculations, packaging sketches, ideas she hadn't tried yet, notes from conversations with customers. "Do you have anything in gold? Can you do custom? My sister's getting married. Could you do something for the bridesmaids?" That last one stuck. A woman named Patricia contacted her through Etsy in November. Wedding, 12 bridesmaids, rose quartz, gold fill wire, simple and matching. Asked what Rachel would charge. Rachel stayed up until 1 in the morning with the legal pad. Materials, time, packaging, shipping. She wrote a number down, looked at it, felt like it was too high. She sent it anyway. Patricia wrote back the next morning. Perfect. When can you start? 12 pieces at $85 each. $1,020. One customer, one email. Rachel sat at the table with her coffee and looked at that number in the legal pad for a while. She thought, so that's what it can be. The wedding side of the business opened a door she hadn't seen. Word moved fast in that world. Patricia told someone. That someone told their cousin. Rachel started getting wedding inquiries every week. She built a dedicated page on her website, learned to make coordinated sets, swapped the white pillowcase for real props, marble slab, linen fabric, velvet. Etsy revenue doubled between November and February. Then in January, a woman named Gail, whose daughter had worn a Rachel Calloway pendant at her wedding, posted a photo on Instagram. Not a review, just a photo. Her daughter in her wedding dress, bouquet in hand, and at her collarbone, catching the light, a labradorite pendant on a gold-filled chain. She tagged Stone and Grace. That post got 14,000 likes! Rachel's phone didn't stop for 4 days. She sold out of everything in 72 hours, but the shop on pause. Worked 16-hour days for 2 weeks. Carol came and took the kids for a long weekend. Rachel didn't leave the table for basically 48 hours, except to sleep 4 hours and start again. She hired her first person in March, a woman from the neighborhood named Alma. Retired art teacher. Careful, precise, high standards. She came 3 mornings a week. Rachel paid her $18 an hour, and the first time she wrote that check, she thought, I made something that is now paying someone else. I made something. 3 mornings became 5. 5 became full-time. 6 months later, Rachel moved Stone and Grace out of the kitchen and into a studio space 2 miles away. 600 square feet. Industrial light, a utility sink, room for 3 work tables. The day they moved in, Rachel stood in the middle of the empty room and just turned around once, slowly. She didn't say anything. She drove home, picked up Cora, made dinner, helped Noah with homework, read Emma 2 chapters about a girl who finds a secret garden, sat on the edge of Cora's bed until she fell asleep. Then she came back to the kitchen table, the old one with the ring stain. She opened the legal pad, last blank page. She wrote the revenue number from the previous month at the top, looked at it, then turned the page over and started the next one. By year 3, Stone and Grace was in 47 retail locations across 12 states. Year 4, 11 employees, workshops, wholesale, international shipping, and then a meeting with buyers from a mid-sized department store chain. Rachel sat across from 2 of them in a conference room. They slid a proposal across the table. She read it, slid it back. I want to renegotiate the margins, and I want creative control over the displays. The buyers looked at each other. That's not usually how we... I know, she said, but that's what I need. They came back with a new number. She got both things. The contract launched that fall. 312 locations. Rachel flew to the headquarters for the opening and walked through the store where her pieces were lit in a glass case under warm spotlights. Her name on the tag. Her work. She stood there for a moment. Then she took out her phone and called Carol. Carol picked up on the second ring. How'd it go? Rachel looked at the display case. Good, Mom. How good? A second of quiet. Really good. I think about Rachel sometimes. Not the conference room version. Not the department store opening. I think about her in that apartment kitchen at 2 a.m. with $13.42 and a legal pad she hadn't figured out what to do with yet. Because that's the version that stays with me. She wasn't anything at that point. She wasn't successful. She wasn't on her way. She wasn't secretly confident it was all going to work out. She was just tired and scared and behind on everything. And the people around her, Diane, Marta, the bank, the old job, every single one of them was, in their own way, telling her the situation was bad. She picked up the pen anyway. She didn't do it because she knew it would work. I want to be clear about that. There were nights that legal pad just sat there closed, and she stared at the wall and thought about giving up. She's said that. Not to me, but she's said it in interviews, on panels, to people who ask her how she did it. She says, I didn't know it would work. I just kept going because stopping felt worse. Cora is 7 now. She doesn't remember any of it. Doesn't remember the apartment, the boxes, the night her mom sat at the kitchen table until the sun came up. What she does have is a stone on her bookshelf. A small piece of labradorite, polished, a little pink in certain light. Rachel set it aside for her years ago. Same kind of stone Cora held up to the window that Sunday afternoon when she was 2 years old. Cora just thinks it's pretty. She doesn't know the rest of the story. Not yet. The yellow legal pad is in Rachel's office now, framed, behind glass. Her assistant asked what it was once, and Rachel said, a business plan, which is accurate and also not really the full answer. The full answer is, it was a list of what was still true when everything else was falling apart. 43 pieces, 200 email subscribers, a market on Saturday, 3 healthy kids, $60 on a card. Not a plan, not a vision, just the bottom of the hole, written down clearly enough to climb out of. Diane called once, a couple years after the department store launch. Rachel recognized the number. She picked up. I saw an article about you, Diane said. Yeah? It mentioned the kids. They're good, Rachel said. Really good. A pause. Well, Diane said. Good. That was it. That was the whole call. Rachel didn't need an apology. She says she's genuinely fine with Greg now. Co-parenting, holiday split, kids navigating 2 houses the way kids do. She's fine with most of it. She's not bitter. I don't think she has time to be. She still uses a yellow legal pad, buys them in bulk. Her assistant has suggested switching to a digital system more than once. Rachel says she'll think about it. She hasn't thought about it. There's always a new page. There always has been. Anyway, that's Rachel's story. I'm glad I got to tell it.